Artifacts that shouldn't exist, the hidden evidence beneath our feet, a dusty excavation site, a quiet afternoon. A gloved hand brushes away layers of earth and reveals something impossible. A metallic object, perfectly machined, smooth curves, intricate engravings. But there's one problem. It's embedded in solid rock, dated over 500 million years old. The archaeologist stares in disbelief, not because of what it is, but because of what it means. If modern civilization is only 6,000 years old, who made this? When? And how? Welcome to the world of forbidden archaeology. A shadow realm of history filled with discoveries that don't fit the official timeline. Artifacts that seem too advanced, too old, or too perfectly engineered to belong to the primitive past we were taught. These anomalies have been ignored, ridiculed, and erased. Because if they're real, they suggest something unthinkable, that an advanced civilization once walked this earth, long before ours ever began. In this video, we'll uncover the artifacts buried by time and hidden by design. From ancient machinery to out-of-place relics, you'll see the evidence mainstream history refuses to face, because some objects were never supposed to be found. And yet, here they are, waiting for those ready to question everything. Part 1. Out of Place. Artifacts that defy history. Throughout the dusty pages of archaeology, a quiet rebellion has been unfolding, not with weapons or wars, but with objects. They're called OOPARTs, out-of-place artifacts. Objects uncovered in geological layers, ancient ruins, or cultural strata, where they simply do not belong. Take the Baghdad battery, for instance. Unearthed in Iraq, it resembles a simple clay jar, but inside, copper cylinders and iron rods, components that, when combined with an acidic liquid, generate electricity, over 2,000 years old, long before Volta or Edison. Then there's the Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a sunken Greek shipwreck. At first glance, it looks like a corroded hunk of bronze, but X-rays revealed an intricate system of gears, capable of calculating planetary positions with astonishing precision. It's been called the world's first analog computer, and yet its complexity wasn't seen again until over 1,000 years later. Or the Klerksdorp spheres, perfectly rounded metallic objects, some with parallel grooves etched around their equators. They were found in South African mines, embedded in geological strata dated to 2.8 billion years ago. And what about the fossilized human footprints found next to dinosaur tracks in Texas? Or the crystal skulls, like the one discovered in Belize, carved with such precision that modern tools would struggle to replicate them even today? These artifacts aren't just anomalies, they are time bombs, each one threatening to unravel the story we've been told about our origins. Because if they are real, if they are not hoaxes, misidentifications, or freak coincidences, then our timeline is broken. Material analysis often confirms their authenticity: aged metals, erosion consistent with great age, and in some cases, advanced craftsmanship no culture of their time was known to possess. Yet, time and again, these findings are ignored, ridiculed, or quietly shelved. Why? Because they don't fit. Mainstream archaeology is built upon a linear model, from primitive to advanced, from caves to computers. But these artifacts suggest a different pattern, a spiral, a cycle, one in which high civilizations may have existed and vanished. These are not just objects. They are clues, breadcrumbs left behind by something older, greater, and deeply forgotten. They ask questions no textbook is ready to answer. Who were these people? Where did their knowledge come from? And why did they disappear? In the next part, we'll dive into those questions, because if these objects are echoes of a lost civilization, then perhaps the myths of Atlantis, Lemuria, and the pre-flood world weren't myths at all. Maybe they were memories. Part 2. Atlantis, Lemuria, and pre-flood civilizations. If the out-of-place artifacts are real, then the question isn't just how they were made, but who made them. To answer that, we must go back, not just through time, but through myth. Because across nearly every ancient tradition, there are whispers of civilizations before history. In Plato's dialogues, Atlantis is described as a great empire of immense knowledge, a people who mastered both spiritual lore and technological power. But when their pride overcame their wisdom, they fell into imbalance, and the earth swallowed them whole. Far across the globe, Hindu texts speak of Lemuria, or Kumari Kandam, a continent of elevated consciousness and radiant beings, lost beneath the ocean during a great cataclysm. In the Book of Enoch, there are tales of the Watchers, advanced beings who brought forbidden knowledge to early humanity before a flood wiped their legacy from the earth. The Sumerians called it the time before the kings descended from the heavens, a golden age when humans lived among gods and the boundaries between spirit and matter were not yet divided. Even in the Americas, indigenous oral traditions describe ancient star people, great floods, sky wars, and the fall of those who played with the forces of the gods. These myths aren't isolated. They're scattered fragments of a deeper shared memory, a memory of a world before the one we know, a world that rose high and then was lost. Could the strange artifacts we've uncovered, the ones too advanced, too ancient, too deliberate, be the remnants of those forgotten epochs? Many researchers now believe these OOPARTs aren't anomalies. They're survivors, echoes of civilizations that existed before the last great reset, what some call the pre-flood world. And if we entertain this idea, then something even more fascinating comes into view: collective amnesia, a condition where humanity has forgotten its own past, not just erased by time, but buried by trauma, hidden by design, because remembering would mean rewriting everything. We laugh at Atlantis, dismiss Lemuria, and ignore the Vedic Yugas, because remembering would mean accepting that we are not the first, and possibly not the most advanced. But that brings us to an uncomfortable truth. If so many traditions remember these ancient worlds, and if physical artifacts support their existence, why aren't we allowed to talk about it? Why do textbooks skip over the anomalies? Why do museums store but never display? Why are independent researchers silenced, ridiculed, or erased? In the next part, we'll explore the long, deliberate suppression of forbidden archaeology, and why, for some, keeping humanity in the dark has always been the goal. Part 3. The suppression of forbidden archaeology. If there are artifacts that don't fit the official story, then someone has been deciding which stories get told. Throughout the past 2 centuries, numerous discoveries have surfaced, objects that defy timelines, challenge Darwinian evolution, and suggest that advanced human civilizations may have existed long before the rise of Egypt or Sumer. And yet, these discoveries rarely make headlines. They don't appear in museums. In many cases, they disappear altogether. Take the Smithsonian Institution, one of the most respected scientific bodies in the world. Over the decades, numerous whistleblowers have claimed that entire collections of anomalous artifacts, giant skeletons, advanced tools, unexplained relics, have been confiscated and sealed away. Some researchers allege that even whole burial mounds in North America were emptied, and the contents never made public. Then there's the Vatican's secret archives, said to contain tens of thousands of ancient texts, maps and artifacts, including pre-Christian records, Atlantean manuscripts, and possibly even relics from lost civilizations. But access is granted only to the privileged few. And what happens to scholars who dig too deep? Reports are withdrawn, funding is cut, academic reputations are ruined, careers vanish overnight. Because to accept the existence of a high civilization before ours, one capable of sophisticated technology, energy manipulation, or interdimensional awareness, would collapse the entire narrative upon which modern history, religion, and science have been built. If Atlantis was real, then our understanding of evolution is incomplete. If Lemuria existed, then the linear model of primitive to advanced is a myth. This isn't merely about artifacts, it's about amnesia and the erasure of identity. Because when you control history, you control how people see themselves. If humanity believes it's the product of randomness, a fragile species clawing its way from darkness, then we remain disconnected, disempowered, easy to manage. But if we remember that we come from greatness, that we carry the DNA of builders, mystics, and star-born architects, then we awaken to who we really are. That's why this truth is buried. Not because it's false, but because it's too powerful. Knowledge is power. And throughout history, that power has been guarded, edited, and weaponized. But here's the twist. Not all of it was lost. Because while official institutions worked to erase, certain groups worked just as hard to preserve. In the next part, we'll explore the secret societies, the hidden orders that carried this ancient wisdom forward through symbols, architecture, and encoded rituals. The keepers of the flame, waiting for the world to be ready again. Part 4. Secret Societies and the Preservation of Prehistoric Knowledge. Not all knowledge was lost. Some of it was hidden in plain sight. While mainstream institutions buried ancient truths, a handful of groups worked quietly to preserve them, passing sacred wisdom through rituals, geometry, and encoded language. Among them, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, the Hermetic orders. Not cults, but guardians of a memory older than civilization itself. These secret societies claim a lineage that stretches back to Atlantis, ancient Egypt, and the mystery schools of Sumer. Their teachings were never written in plain text, but encoded in architecture, symbols, and initiatory practice. Look closely at Gothic cathedrals. You'll find the golden ratio, the flower of life, and zodiac alignments. Not as decoration, but as vibrational blueprints. Keys to unlock forgotten frequencies. The pyramids, the labyrinth of Chartres, the great domes of Europe, all resonate with geometry rooted in Atlantean design. And it's not just stone. In paintings by Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, members or associates of secret schools, you'll find subtle messages, encoded mathematics, and alchemical truths. Art wasn't merely beauty, it was memory preservation. Even language itself, Latin, Hebrew, Sanskrit, contains layers of vibrational and symbolic meaning lost to modern tongues. What we dismiss as superstition may be compressed code from an earlier, wiser world, These groups never tried to stop time. They knew civilization would fall, history would distort, and humanity would forget. So they hid the truth in form, trusting that when the soul was ready, the eyes would see again. Because the greatest secret wasn't the artifacts. It was the capacity to perceive them. What if the real challenge isn't uncovering relics, but remembering how to read the map? Maybe the ancient skulls, lost machines, and stone spheres are just surface clues. The deeper technology lives in how you see, how you feel, how you align with pattern. That's why we don't need to dig under mountains. We need to excavate consciousness, because once you learn to decode symbols, once you begin to recognize sacred geometry not as art, but as instruction, you realize the truth was never gone. It was just encrypted. The symbols are everywhere, but the language has been silenced. Not lost, only encrypted. Because that language awakens something too powerful: memory, lineage, power. Not power over others, but power over your reality. Power to remember who you were before the forgetting. In the final part, we'll explore exactly that. How to activate the ancient memory that still lives within your DNA. How to reconnect, not with history, but with a frequency older than time. Because maybe the true artifacts were never made of stone. Maybe they were always you. Part 5. Awakening the ancient memory within. The greatest discovery is not buried under layers of stone. It's buried under layers of forgetting. Because the most powerful artifact you will ever uncover is not made of gold or crystal. It is your own consciousness. The ancient civilizations we speak of, Atlantis, Lemuria, the pre-flood world, may be lost to time, but they are not lost to you. They live on in your DNA, in your intuition, in the quiet moments when you feel an inexplicable connection to something vast and ancient, something no book ever taught you, but your soul still remembers. You are not here to witness history. You are history, encoded, walking, remembering. When you stand before a megalithic temple or trace the spiral in a sacred symbol and feel your breath catch for reasons you can't explain, that's not coincidence. That's memory stirring. That's a signal. You've been here before. The ancients understood this. They didn't just build monuments. They built resonance points designed to activate the human field. They embedded knowledge not in language, but in form, proportion, frequency. This is why the spiral, the golden ratio, and sacred geometry show up again and again, across continents, cultures, and millennia. Because those shapes are codes. They don't just represent something, they do something. And when you meditate with them, when you engage with ancient symbols, architecture, chants, or mandalas, you're not just studying history, you're interacting with a vibrational technology. You're tuning your nervous system to a forgotten frequency. You're activating dormant circuits within your own energetic field. You're waking up the memory of what it means to be human. Not as a fragile creature lost in time, but as a divine being aligned with the cosmos. So how do you begin this reactivation? Start simple. Meditate on ancient symbols. Let go of intellectual analysis. Just observe. Let your body respond. Feel what shifts. Walk through sacred sites, whether physical or visual, with reverence. Observe their layout, their geometry. Let your heart receive, not just your eyes. Study what doesn't make sense, the outliers in history, the anomalies that don't fit. They are the breadcrumbs. Ask new questions, not what happened, But why did they build this in this shape, this proportion, this direction? Trust your resonance. If something ancient calls to you, follow it. That's not curiosity. That's encoded memory reactivating. And most of all, remember who you are. You are not just here to learn about ancient civilizations. You are here to continue them. You are not just a seeker of lost knowledge. You are a carrier of it. In the next video, we'll dive deeper into the language that connects it all. Ancient symbols, not decorations, but gateways, not images, but messages from a forgotten world. Messages that were always meant for you. Final CTA. If this video shook the foundations of what you thought you knew, it means something ancient inside you just woke up. Share this truth. Because the story we've been told as history was never the full story. Pieces have been erased, voices silenced, artifacts buried. But the memory is still alive. In stone, in symbol, and in you. And now, the spiral has turned, and you are remembering. In the next video, we'll follow the next breadcrumb in the trail. Ancient maps that reveal continents no longer on the globe, routes that shouldn't exist, and evidence of civilizations the world forgot. Next episode, what ancient maps reveal about lost civilizations. Because sometimes, to find the future, you have to read the past they tried to erase.